All right. Good morning, everyone. Hope you can all hear me okay. Welcome to our second month for this webinar training series with AB Technologies. I'm joined by Robert Crane. We'll be conducting this webinar. The topic for this month is going to be managing project life cycles with Microsoft Teams and how we can make the most out of using the Teams platform to optimize business processes and efficiencies and things like that. So we'll just wait another minute before we get started. Let the stragglers come in. Just so you all know, the meeting will be recorded. So yeah, that's just something to keep in mind. We will send out a recording of the meeting. So if you want to drop off, feel free to, and we can make sure that's sent out and you can watch it at a later date. If you've got any questions through the duration of the webinar, feel free to drop them in the chat. At the end of the meeting, we'll be doing a Q&A so we can answer any questions you guys might have. I'll also just take this time quickly to congratulate Kingsley for winning the door prize for last month's webinar. We'll be doing another prize at the end of this month, so stick around for the end, and we'll be just emailing the winner directly for that. So the agenda for this month will be, we'll go through Microsoft news and any kind of recent updates with Microsoft and the Microsoft ecosystem. Robert will be going through that, and then we'll go through and discuss the topic for this month, which, as I said, was managing project life cycles using Microsoft Teams. So Robert, I'll let you take over and we'll get started with the Microsoft news.
Excellent. All right, so just confirm that you can see my screen.
Yep, that looks good.
Excellent. All right, so welcome along, everybody. Thank you very much for your time invested. Who can believe that it's October, almost November? Christmas time is coming shortly. I saw a fantastic Lego model of the Titanic, a couple of thousand pieces. So if we can get that delivered, that might be the option for me, I think, to keep me quiet over Christmas. But hopefully you have heard some of the talk from Microsoft. We did mention Windows 11. So I thought I'd give you a quick look at it here. So this is the interface here on a demonstration machine. First thing is it's obviously a lot more visually striking. It looks maybe perhaps more like a Macintosh or an Apple style interface. One of the big changes you've seen here is the task button has now moved to the center, a very Mac-esque style approach. And when you click the start button, you'll see that it does have a slightly different look and feel. Probably more has been put into the appearance. The reality is that under the covers, it basically is Windows 10. So largely think of this as a reskinning of Windows 10 for now. However, going forward, Microsoft will be building more and more of its platforms on top of this. So again, think of this as its new style interface moving forward that we will see take the place of Windows 10 basically over time. So you'll see here that it all looks and feels very much the same. You've got the addition of things like widgets then if you want to integrate with them. And if you have a look over here in the message center, you see that it's basically the same, but basically reworked to make it more visually appealing. Now, typically the machines that you have will be eligible for the Windows 11 upgrade. That will be presented to you when Microsoft determines that your machine is going to be have the best experience in that. So we're expecting to see that rolling out in stages. Most people probably won't be presented with an upgrade on their existing machine until probably towards the end of the year into next year. So there's no need to rush and worry about it. It will be coming, but new machines will come delivered with Windows 11. Now, probably the biggest improvement or the biggest change in Windows 11 is underneath the covers here around security. So cybersecurity is a huge challenge, and a lot of that can be mitigated using hardware techniques. So Windows 11 will take advantage of the inbuilt hardware that devices have come with for the past few years to provide additional protection. So for example, when a machine boots and it runs the operating system, it puts all the user accounts into an area in memory. At the moment, that area may be susceptible to an attacker grabbing that or dumping that. Using the inbuilt Windows 11 security features that are tied to hardware, that becomes next to impossible to do. So simple things like that can make a big difference when it comes to security, and they will be inbuilt and enabled by default. Now, this page here will give you a link at the end of the show here that you can go in and have a look at what some of these advantages are. But in essence, all current or recent machines are going to have this capability built in, and they will take advantage of it natively. But if you do want to understand better how this sort of thing works and how the security is tied to what's now available in the hardware, I would call out that you go and have a look at this and look at some of the capabilities that Windows 11 is bringing. One of the good examples here is Windows Hello. So basically, if you have the appropriate hardware camera, which most machines these do have, it will recognize you and log you in using the biometric data from your face rather than having to put a password in. So again, there's some examples of the hardware capabilities being built into Windows 11. Now, staying with the cybersecurity theme here, which is always a big theme, Microsoft has released its digital defense report here. You can go in and read Microsoft's analysis of it. You can also go and download the full report. So the full report is going to show you things like, where ransomware attacks are targeted, what typical attacks have been like, what to look for, how to obviously avoid this. This is the second time. This is the second one that Microsoft has released. It's an annual report. Again, if you're interested in security and better understanding where attacks are coming from and what the threats are, again, it's a good report to go in, freely available. Go in, have a look at it. Lots of really good information in there from Microsoft, who, as you can probably appreciate, does see a lot of these sort of attacks in its back end and has to deal with this from their own customers' point of view. So again, certainly encourage you to go in and download and have a look at this digital defense report from Microsoft. And again, spend a little time looking at and understanding where the threats are today. Now, one of the things you mentioned with Windows 11 is this concept of passwordless. Microsoft is very much about removing passwords. Passwords are troublesome because, unfortunately, they don't work well with people because we need to have unique passwords for every account. We need to have them complex. We need to have them long. And that makes it very difficult for people to manage this over their many accounts. So a better approach is to look at passwordless. Now, passwordless relies on hardware technology like a camera to scan your face, a fingerprint reader, or a third-party key that you plug into the PC to verify that it is you. So again, if you're thinking about this, and it does make life a lot easier. So in my case, when I turn my machines on in the morning, I basically just have to sit in front of the machine. It will log me in securely just by recognizing my face and give me access to all the information that I need. So in essence, you can start using biometric capabilities to speed your logins, but also make it more secure, because then you're not depending on something that you have to remember and recover and then potentially change, and that can be stolen. So again, tying passwordless to something you are or something you have is pretty straightforward in the Microsoft environment, and encourage you to go in and have a look at that. And again, I would recommend this to all organizations if they have the capability to go in and really think about implementing passwordless technology. It's not only quicker, easier, but it's also more secure. Now, another product that has had a major update is Microsoft Whiteboard. So as the name says, if you aren't familiar with it, this gives you the capability to go and do a digital whiteboard that allows you to incorporate one of the most common things that we saw when we were all back inside our offices. Let me just see. I can bring it up here. So the idea here is that we've got the capability to use our whiteboard technology. All right, so let me just fire one up here. You'll see here that this is a whiteboard I was doing yesterday. All right, so I've just created a new whiteboard here. And you'll see over on the left, I've got my ability to choose my pens. I've got the ability to do highlighters. I can erase, I can put a ruler. But, I can go in here and type, hopefully. See where that's gone. Not working. Okay. So again, we can select the pen here and hopefully we have a bit of a challenge here by the look at it. Let me try once again. See if I can get that to work. That looks a bit better. It's just off the screen there. So you'll get the idea here of what I can do. I can go in and, change the pen color here. So I can go maybe a bit rainbow and, introduce color. I can, like I said, I can put in pictures. I can put in post-it notes. I can do all sorts of really cool things in here. So again, if you haven't had a look at a Whiteboard, it's a free app. You can download it. You can integrate it with your Microsoft Teams, and you can also use it basically on any device that you have. So you can use it on iOS, Android, and on Windows, as we see here. Now, this article here will show you some of the enhancements and improvements that are coming to the platform. The ability to bring in graphics and highlight those, the ability to do flow charts, and like I said, sticky notes. So if you're a big one for sticky notes, you can do that. You can highlight existing graphics. This is really good when you're discussing plans and projects and things. You'll see that we've also got the ability to put arrowheads now here as well. We've got the ability to ink to straight lines, which is really handy for someone like me who can't draw a straight line. And we can also do shapes and so on. So I would commend you to, again, if you haven't had a look at what Whiteboard offers, it's a free application on your mobile device and also available from the Microsoft Store. And all the information can be synchronized together so that everybody can work on that whiteboard together if you want. And then you can share that information, export it to a graphic, and send it to other people if you want to do that. So lots and lots of things happening in the Microsoft sphere as always. And we are waiting upon a big Microsoft conference coming in November. Well, there'll be more and more announcements around the product. So we'll bring you news of that when it does break out for maybe the next one or the one after this session. All right, so that's really all I want to cover quickly in the news. So what we want to do is now turn our attention to the Microsoft Teams environment. So if you haven't been using Microsoft Teams, this is, again, a basic tenet. What you'll see is that Teams is a way to bring information together in one place. So if you think about a traditional file server, that has been a place where your files live, but then you would have to take those files, edit them in Word, then attach them to an email, send them to somebody else. They would then make a copy and send it back. And then if you started incorporating more people, this would become quite cumbersome to work with because suddenly, who's got the most current version? So the idea with Teams is firstly to give you a place to put all your files. All right, so again, we can upload files into those locations, and then we can also have chats around that information. Now, the benefit of the chat is going to be the ability to search the information up the top here. So anything that I put into my team, my conversation, or my files can basically be searchable. And that's very handy when people come in and out of a project. Now, the good thing about this is we can create and utilize and work with as many teams as we want. So if you have the permissions to do this, you'll see down the bottom, you have the ability to click on the icon here to create or join a team. So if there's a team out there that exists, you can connect to that provided you have permissions, or we can select the option to go in here and create a team. Now, when we create a team, we can obviously start from a blank slate and build it all ourselves. We can use an existing team that we already have. So let's say that you are doing a project and the next project is going to look very similar to the first one. You can use that as a template for every other team going forward, or we can use a number of preset teams that Microsoft here has for us. So let's select this Adopt Microsoft Office 365. Now, what that's going to tell us is it's going to create 5 channels, so 5 independent areas to have chats and store files, and it's going to add 3 applications in for us as part of this template. So we go next. My next choice is, okay, do I want to make this a private group via invite only? So the only people who can join this are people that I invite, or do I want to make it public the fact that anybody can discover it, they can wander in as they see fit. So everybody has permissions to do this. You are in control of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this team a name. My advice to you when you do name something here is keep it short, keep it punchy. Try to avoid using spaces, special characters, exclamation marks, hashes. It will work, but my advice to you is keep it short and avoid things like spaces and special characters, and this will help people with Office 365. I would also encourage you to put in a meaningful description. That helps others find this information or find this team at a later date. So take the moment up front to put that information in there. We'll go create, and then that will spawn that process, go off and create that team for us, and obviously invite any additional people that are already part of that we have decided to basically have inside that team. So if we go over here, you'll see it's now beginning to spin up. It might take a moment or two to complete that process, but we've got our capability here in our general channel. We can go in and, like I said, upload the files in here when that's ready. And if we want, we can extend this further by adding additional tabs. So maybe you want to reference a particular website, a third-party external website. Maybe you want to integrate Whiteboard, as we talked about. So maybe you want a whiteboard that anybody can come in and use. Maybe you want to link to an Excel document or so on. Now, not only have we got Microsoft capabilities here, you'll see that we've got apps from a range of third-party people here. So if you wanted to do, for example, a poll, you can use the inbuilt Microsoft Forms, or you can use third-party apps like Polly to ask your team members for that, and that will appear as a tab up the top. So remember, when we create this area, this is not the finished product. We can keep extending and improve it. So now our files are available. Let's just go in here and create a new Word document, just to give you an idea. So again, remember that I'm doing all of this inside the browser. I'm still inside Teams here. It's going to open Word in a browser for me and inform me that it's all private. And then I'm going to be able to go in here and do whatever I want. And yep, I do have all that. And what's happening now is it's actually saving this immediately in the background. So if I now close this finished document, you'll see now here is my hello world. Simple as that to start creating and collaborating. I can now open that again directly in the browser or using a desktop application. I can copy a link and send it to somebody. I can download it, delete it, have all the options that are available to me. The main advantage here now is what I can do is I can create a new conversation here and say, I just created this. And then what I can do is I can link to that file. All right, so I'm going to browse the locations. There's the document I just created, share a link, okay, and then post. And then that will now be available to all the people inside that channel to look and view and add their own comments and work on that document. So rather than creating a document on your own, attaching it, sending it to somebody else, having them change it, get it back, or integrate multiple changes, it's so much easier to work in this environment. And again, remember, hopefully, if we do a search up here and it has indexed the data and we go into files, not as yet, it hasn't had time to go and crawl all that data, but you will be able to go in and search for that information quickly and easily. Now, one of the other questions is, okay, this is great. I use a team and it works great for my internal people, but what about people outside my organization? How do I get them into and sharing this information? So the benefit of that is that you are able to allow people that you would normally send emails to get them into this same area, collaborate as a normal user was, but you can then remove them from the team at a later stage and you retain all control of the information. So the information doesn't move outside your organization. So if you're collaborating with email, every time you send an attachment, that attachment leaves your organization, leaves your control, and you're relying on that other user to do the right thing. So they could forward your attachment for example, and send it to somebody that you don't know. So we can get much more control over our information and still work with external users here. So what I could do, for example, if again you have been given the permissions to this, so I can mention people here. So what I can do is I can mention internal people, but I can also mention an email address here of somebody, and when I would send that off, that would then potentially invite that person into the conversation. They would then need to complete whatever security requirements are required. So it can be as simple as just quoting someone with their email address who is outside your organization to allow you to converse inside that and go through whatever security that you've deemed necessary. And you can control all this, you can prevent this, and provide more security if you want. Now, if you are an administrator, you can go up here and you can manage the team here. So you'll be able to see who the members are. So at the moment, there are no other members as yet, but I can go in and add a member here. So I could go in and add someone. Oops. Okay, so I can add an internal user. And if I wanted to, I could add my Hotmail address. Oh, keep going. Right, so we can invite people that way as well if we so choose. So again, you'll see that we can add these people quickly and easily if we want. And for our internal users, we can determine whether they are an owner or a member. Basically, an owner has full rights. They can create teams, they can delete things, whereas a member basically is allowed to work on the information. The external user I've invited, you'll see that there's only an option to be a guest. So that means they have a limited set of permissions. They can read and write, but they can't, for example, create teams or delete information. So I go close. That information will then be sent off and managed, and that external user will be invited. We can also go in here and we can set up additional channels. So you'll see here that we now have our 4 hidden channels that have been added. I could go in here and add another channel if I want. You'll see that a channel can be standard or private. So again, we can restrict who has access to that to control the information. We have the settings here, so we can add, for example, a picture. We can determine what our members have permissions to do. We also have the ability to do Giphies and memes and all that sort of stuff, which you can disable if you so choose. We get nice analytics here. We can see how many users, what they're contributing, what they're doing inside our organization. And we've also got the ability to go in and add those third-party apps. And you'll see that there's quite a list there from Microsoft and third-party providers as well. So what we've done here is we've gone in and we've created a team. We've added or invited internal and external users. That can be as simple as just quoting an email address. They will then get an invite and an onboarding process to do that. They can contribute, and at any stage, if we want, we can remove those people from the team if we want. Now, what happens if we're finished with the team and we don't want anybody to contribute with this anymore? What we would do is we would go in here. Oops, sorry. You would go in here and select the cog. And this is the list of my teams here. And then what I can do if I go to the 3 dots over here, you'll see that I have an option here called archive the team. Now, what that means is the team will be placed into read-only mode for all members except administrators. So everybody will still be able to see the team and search it and find the information as they did before. But once it's archived, they can no longer have chats, they can no longer upload files or change files in the environment. The only person that can is the administrator. Now, at this point, you may decide that, okay, I don't want to have people inside this team at all. You can go in and remove them from the team, and the team will still stay there in the background, and only the users that you want will have access to it. And if you want, you'll see that you can also go in and delete the team if you want. Now, if you do delete the team, all the information, the chats and the files, all that will be removed from the system. It does go into a recycle bin for a period of about 30 days or so that you can recover that with a single click if you want to. So at the end of the day, you do have that capability to have that full control and recover from a recycle bin if there's been some oversight when you have actually gone in and deleted a team. Now, the thing to think about here around the life cycle is, okay, do I really need to delete that team? Might I have use for it? Generally, you've got the space and the capacity in your environment to retain the team. Should I perhaps just archive it and remove users so that they can't see it, but it's still available? So it's up to you to choose what you want to do, whether you want to just leave it as it is, if you want to archive it and effectively make it read only for everybody, or you do want to remove the users and potentially delete the team. That is totally up to you how you want to manage the team. General advice would be, unless there's a major reason to delete the team, I think archiving is probably the best option that you can take there. Now, if you're an administrator or you do have admin rights, you do get a back-end console where you can control this with more granularity. So you'll see here that I can go in and manage the teams. You'll see here that once again, I can select this and I can archive that team as an administrator at the back end. So I don't have to be a member, provided I have the rights basically to do that. Down here, you'll see that I have the ability to control guest access, and I also have the ability to control external access here. So if you do want to prevent people being invited who are outside your organization, you can do that as an administrator here. To select the option and it will be prevented. However, remember, generally, the external access is going to be enabled by default to allow people to collaborate with external parties, and generally encourage them to come into this environment, share their information, and again, make that in a forum or in a location. That means that it's going to be available and searchable for everybody. So let me just see if it has had time to index it. Not as yet still. Okay. So the big benefits of Teams when it comes to collaboration versus probably email or basic file sharing is, one, all your information is in one single location that's easily accessible for all employees. You get the same experience on a mobile, on a Mac, on a PC. You get the ability to search all that information rather than it being siloed in people's emails, and you can refer to it quickly and easily. We can take a team if we want and leave it active. No downside to that. You can move a team into an archive mode where people have read-only access, so they can always access and refer to the information, but they are prevented from updating that. And then if you want, you can delete the team. Now, all of the policies you've seen, all the configurations here are things that can be adjusted to suit your environment. So if you want no guest access, like I said, you can turn that off. If you don't want Giphies, you can turn that off. So this can be adjusted to suit your environment. But do remember, generally out of the box, a lot of this stuff is enabled to encourage people to collaborate, to get in, share information, make it available to people across your team. All right. Okay, so I think we're pretty much on time. Are there any questions for me in the queue that I need to answer?
I think there was one question there about deleting teams and whether that deletes files within that team.
Yeah, so the idea here is that, again, you should think about the fact that if I delete a team, it's going to delete the whole box and dice. Now, there are ways to retain the files and overcome that if you don't want. So if you want to keep the files, you can move them to another location. You can change your options so the files are retained. But you should always assume that when you do delete a file, if you've made no other changes, that any files that you've created will be deleted as well. And that's why I would encourage you to be very careful and question the need to delete a team. Generally, there's probably not a need to do that, but you could move the data to another location and then delete the team if you want. So you should assume that if you do delete a team, everything in the team, the conversations, the apps, any interactions that you've had, including files, will be removed from the system.
Thanks, Robert. Yeah, I'll just add to that. We can set up retention policies as well to keep files forever for compliance reasons and things like that. So if that's of any interest, feel free to obviously reach out to us and we can help getting that set up for your organization. There's another question that's come in about email. So we use emails quite a lot. Can we send emails into Teams channels? Did you want to elaborate on that, Robert?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, the idea here is we want to integrate with existing environments, and email is a very common capability. Now, once we've created our channels here, one of the capabilities we can select here, you'll see, is you can get an email address for an individual channel. So when we do this, what the system is going to give us is it's going to give us an email for that channel. Now, what that means is when it generates this, it will basically allow you to send an email to this email address. All right. So if we send an email to 1D5FFAA, yada, 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 the email and any attachments would basically then appear in that location. So what this means is let's have a think about this. One of the good ways, one of the ways that I use it, is that all these industry newsletters I actually subscribe to using this channel email address I've created, so that instead of filling up my inbox with all these industry newsletters, they all end up in a Teams channel. The benefit of that is they're firstly available to everybody in the organization. They don't have to subscribe to them individually. So there's only one copy coming into the business. And importantly, I can search all that information. So 6 months later, I think, oh, I saw something in a newsletter. I can go in here into Teams and do a search. And the final advantage is that any newsletter that comes in, somebody can come in and add their own content, their own opinions, or they can call something out, or they can call people's attention to it so that others can come in and converse around it. So rather than it being an email inside someone's inbox, which they'll probably never see and potentially delete down the track, having one copy come into a team is a better option. And again, the way that we do that is once you've created a channel, you select that and basically select get an email address. The system will generate you an email, a unique email address for that channel that you can provide to people outside your business to send you emails with attachments that will appear in the chat, and the files will also be saved in the files area. So it's a super handy way to collaborate with others and get information from outside, typically into your team. And one of the indicators I would recommend for you is to consider thinking about it when it comes to industry newsletters or stuff that everybody in the business needs to see, but it's probably better delivered in one central location. All right, hopefully that answers that question.
Cool. Well, I think that just about wraps things up. We're out of time. I will just finish on one point. It's a topic that comes up quite a bit with our customers, and it's in regards to permissions and not being able to do certain things, whether it be creating a team or adding a tab to a channel inside of a team. So our policy when we set up Microsoft Teams for the organization from the get-go is to actually lock down team creation to only a few staff. And the main reason for this is just to prevent information sprawl, because things can get out of hand pretty quickly if everyone's got access to create teams. And we want to keep things as organized as possible. And modifying the tabs and settings within a team is going to be restricted down to the owner of that team. So this, I think Robert touched on that earlier. So if you do want to add an app or add a web page or or a document to the tab at the top, what I'd recommend doing is seeing who the owner of that team is, getting in touch with them. They can either do it for you or they can add you as an owner to that team as well. So that's what I'd recommend there. And if you have any difficulty, obviously feel free to reach out and we can give you a hand getting those permissions sorted out. So
I think we've got one more question there from Craig about, can we edit the email address so the vendors don't think it's fake? Why would they think it's fake? Come on. What you can do is you can use an alias. So you can create an alias that may be newsletters@yourdomain.com and then point it to that other one, the system generator one, if you want. So yes, the answer is yes, but there's a little bit of extra configuration step you would need to take, but that is certainly possible to do that if you want to have something that is probably more tied to your business.
thanks for that question, Craig. Well, look, if there's nothing else, look, I'll just say thank you all for joining this webinar and sticking through till the end. Thanks again to Robert for helping host this with us. We will be emailing the winner of the giveaway shortly. And yeah, we'll hope to see you all again next month. Thanks again.
Thanks, everybody.